today in this reflection, I'll be covering a couple of the key kind of questions for consideration throughout the semester, talking a little bit more about some of my favorite experiences in terms of the modules that we've done over the past couple of weeks, and get a little bit more into my thoughts and process for the scientific review articles. The first question that I'd like to answer is kind of what the most impactful lesson or experiential has been for me. I think particularly the one that we did last week, expressive therapies such as music, art, and dance. That lecture at the very beginning where we had Sneha and the guided kind of music therapy teacher come in. Those were extremely kind of relaxing, and I found those as kind of our initial starting meditations to be some of the most helpful. And I think, at least in my kind of practice going forward, I'd like to incorporate the music-based therapy a little bit more, and music-based mindfulness a little bit more, just so that I can kind of connect sounds with a lot of these things. And it really did help me kind of narrow and center my focus. I think I was most surprised by the guided imagery lecture. The experience that we did in class was, take a bite out of a lemon, or imagine yourself in a lot of different scenarios. And as a visual thinker, I didn't think I knew I'd get like a lot out of the experience, but I wasn't expecting as much as I did, where I was able to translate kind of physical thoughts in my head into physical sensations. Some of my kind of experiences with mind-body techniques or practices that I've taken into my own life after either a discussion board exercise or class is particularly the one about mindfulness and meditation that we did very early on. I've continued to use the app Calm to help me kind of fall asleep at night. And also when I'm really stressed or before some sort of large activity, I use the app Calm to basically go through a 3 to 5 minute guided meditation that helps me center myself quite a bit, and focus on like learning how to take 3 to 5 minutes and think through thoughts without passing judgment for myself, which has been, I think, the most critical part of helping me warm up to the fact that mindfulness and meditation have a lot of positive potential in my life. In regards to any of these tools kind of outside of class that I've continued to use, even beyond the Calm app, I think one thing that I have mentally tried to do as much as possible is for a lecture on the role of compassion and forgiveness for improved well-being. The idea that if kind of someone has faulted you in the past, or if you're harboring these feelings, I've first learned to kind of get in much better touch with those feelings. Second, mentally, the activity of kind of welcoming them into your heart was something that took me a little bit of time to warm up to again, but mentally that's something that I have been doing for some kind of small interaction or larger interaction. And I think this has really improved kind of my day-to-day relationships and helped me learn to let go of kind of smaller things that I would have otherwise spent a lot of time on in like personal interactions. The scientific review article process has been really interesting. I think, again, there is a ton of research out there on mindfulness, but a couple key things should be taken into account. The first is kind of how the study is designed. The second is how these conclusions are presented. And then the third, that I hadn't paid as much attention to before, but now pay attention to now after kind of going through the process, is the selection criteria for different patients, and figuring out kind of whether the conclusions that the study is able to draw are applicable and replicable to other populations. So I like the fact that we're kind of critically analyzing these papers every week to come up with limitations, which I think are easier to come up with, strengths which are easier to come up with, but the limitations are definitely the hard part, and learning how to analyze a paper critically through that lens every single week has been tremendously beneficial. A couple of the things that I'm kind of still curious about that I think we will be getting to later in this kind of course, but the first is learning a little bit more about kind of physical ways to reduce stress. So I know there are a couple people in our class who use Tai Chi and other methods, and I'd like to learn a little bit about that myself. And then the last question, have these tools helped increase my self-awareness? I would say absolutely. In the past, I've been someone who quickly breezes over kind of the way that I'm feeling, but this course has really helped me hone in on my own feelings and the ways in which I interact with other people.